There's NME backstage at Glastonbury with Jeremy Corbyn. Hello, Jeremy.
Hi, how you doing?
Really good, thanks. So you're essentially the biggest rock star at Glastonbury 2017. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I can't sing, can't dance, can't read music, can't play an instrument. Is that a qualification?
It would seem not, but somehow you're pulling it off. The crowds have been quite crazy for you. We've heard the chant for the entire weekend so far. Have you got involved in the chant at all yourself?
Not at all, no, not at all. I love being here, I love the atmosphere of it, and I love the mixture of music, food, people camping, talking, environment, politics, all kinds of issues being debated and discussed, and I think it opens up a lot of people's minds to different things. I think that's great. I just wish it could be even bigger, but obviously there are constraints of place and size, and I went to see the organisational centre of it this morning. Quite incredible. Fire service, ambulance service, police and all that there just to make sure everybody's safe. I think it's really impressive, the organisation that goes into it.
The world's changed quite a lot over the last year. It was the anniversary of Brexit vote yesterday. How do you feel that the world's changed since the election called? How do you feel that Britain has changed? Because obviously there's been a whole surge of momentum behind you. Do you think we're living in a different place to when the election was called?
I think we're in a very different place. The election was called and the experts predicted a walkover for the Tories. Theresa May fought the election as her versus the rest of the world, and we fought the election as the basis of the people deserve a hearing and something better, and we fought a very different election campaign to ones that we've done in the past. It was on the streets, it was open air meetings and rallies. I did 100 events during the election campaign, many of which were open air rallies on beaches all over the country, and we're doing it all again because I think the politics of people coming together, often with very different ideas, to at least listen to each other and talk about it is good, and that I'm very pleased to promote and present. But it's also social media came into its own, and so whilst a number of the print media were incredibly hostile to Labour and to individuals on our front bench team with John McDonnell, Diane Abbott, myself and so on, in reality social media has far greater reach, and so those that follow Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, all these things help to get that message across, and it certainly resulted in the voter registration that was so important, with probably 2 million people registering to vote in the last 2 weeks before the closing date for registration.
So how do you think that you're best going to keep everybody engaged and switched on and part of the movement that you've started, given that we're kind of not in campaign mode anymore?
Well, a good point. I think we have to recognise that what happened at Grenfell Tower is a game changer in our society. It's a game changer about safety. It's a game changer about attitudes towards housing. Do we treat housing solely as a market opportunity, or do we treat it as something that's a human right and a necessity? I don't think the fifth richest country in the world should see predominantly poor people burning to death in a towering inferno any more than it should tolerate people sleeping on the streets around stations. We can and should do a lot better. I hope this is a massive wake-up call for the entire community, and I'm calling on people to campaign as never before for housing justice.
You've just given a really powerful and quite emotional speech on the main stage at Glastonbury. I saw a lot of people quite emotional in the crowd listening to it. Could you imagine any other British political leaders being able to stand up there and give that kind of speech?
Well, I've obviously known large numbers of political leaders over the years, and many were very emotional and very capable of what they put forward. I think one of the great orators of all time was actually Tony Benn, who could always encapsulate a complicated historical narrative with a very simple way of presenting it, because the issue has to be to take what can be presented as complicated issues, simplify them in an understandable way, but above all empower people. And what Tony did was always empower people.
Obviously, Glastonbury's in the countryside. You will have had to travel past lots of fields to arrive here, fields of wheat possibly. Did you have any urge to jump out the car and run through any fields of wheat on the way here?
I'm far too responsible a citizen to run through a wheat field. I grew up in the countryside in Wiltshire and then later in Shropshire, and I was taught from a very, very early age, you walk round the edge of a cropped field. You don't walk through fields of wheat because it'll damage the wheat. I'm totally shocked that anybody would run through a wheat field and damage wheat. It's a terrible thing to do.
And are there any truth in the rumours that you're going to bust onto stage with BBK tomorrow night and drop a few verses?
No.
Thank you very much.